I have your attention, please? Thank you all for coming. We're here to celebrate an amazing person that we all knew, who was known by many and loved by all. And it's my father, Randolph Wellington Bowles. And I want to thank our hosts, Carol and Don Cruikshank, for having this amazing event. Thank you so much. And Shelley, for helping us to film everything. And if anyone hasn't had their picture taken, we're asking to meet up with her afterwards to have her be able to do so. Appreciate that. During the last year of his life, he was suffering from the ends of a very brutal disease. And yet, we were able to have so many laughs with him, as everyone knows. He was a dynamic individual. And yet, at the same time, there was this ominous cloud hanging over us, because it was quite obvious that this condition was progressing at a very rapid rate. And yet, through all of it, he was able to keep the amiability and humor and ability to laugh at himself, which he was always self-deprecating and really good at, making other people feel comfortable and getting them to laugh. And laughing is infectious, and when you start laughing with a group of people, you start having fun, enthusiasm, and it takes off from there. There's a quote from Reggie Jackson that says, "Use the straw that stirs the drink." That was my father. And throughout the process of it, Dad had wanted to believe that there was going to be a way to be cured from this disease, and yet at the same time was interested in some sort of afterlife or concept of what was to come next. And I, in my own life search, have found a lot of solace in a couple of different pieces that I'd like to read you guys. The first is called "What is Success?" What is success? To win the respect of intelligent people, to laugh often and much, and the affection of children. To earn the appreciation of honest critics, and endure the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one person has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. This is how to measure success. The next is from an essay that was written by a woman who works in hospice in Australia. It's about the top 5 regrets of the dying. So my dad obviously wanted to make sure that no stone was unturned, try to find out how he lived his life. And so I had brought this to his attention when we were going over it. And the first is, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life expected by others. Well, I'm pretty sure all of you would agree that Dad was strong in that suit. He was definitely true to himself. He's a one of a kind. And he got the most out of life, because despite this being a tragedy, he cannot have in any way felt shorted in life. And got all of us together here is a testament to how dynamic he truly was. I wish I didn't work so hard. His motto was work hard, play hard. And I think that he had a great balance between the two. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. You know, I'm not sure that was his strong suit, but then nobody's perfect. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. This was something he was very passionate about. He had a list that he would go over maybe once a month and pick at least one person to contact and see how they were doing, what was going on with them. And he was sincerely interested. And regularly he would tell me that family and friends are what matter in this world. And I think that that's a great lesson and guidepost for all of us. And finally, I wish that I had let myself be happier. that might be the biggest joke of all, because he certainly allowed himself to laugh and be happy. He was one of the most fun people I've ever met. And he saw the best in everyone and tried to build them up and make them feel happy, feel comfortable, laugh with him, and enjoy life. Finally, there's a book called The Ruins, and there's this thing called The Ruins of Comfort for the Bereaved. I am the life and the light and the way. The earth is my garden. Each of the souls I plant as seeds, germinates and flowers in its season. And in each I am fulfilled. There is no cause for grief. When a blossom fades, but only rejoicing for the beauty it held, and praise that my will is done, and my plan served. I am one with all creatures, and none is ever lost, but only restored to me. Having never left me at all, for what is eternal cannot be separated from its source. I am with you all, and each of you is a channel for my light. Feel my love, and hold you now, and evermore. He was a larger-than-life personality, and I know I count myself as being very blessed to have him in my life and have him be my role model and guide. And I just wanted to have Dad, everyone, raise your glass for him. Greatest guy I've ever known. Love you. Glad to see all of you here. Cheers to Randy. And up next, I'd like to introduce my brother, Andrew Wolf, or Chris Wolf. Sorry.
If I'm walking like a cripple, it's because I thought I was going to join Randy about 3 weeks ago, but I'm fighting back from back surgery. Trying to get over the fact that a number of people have come up and mentioned to me that I look so much like Randy, and that's hurtful to me. And Randy would say the same thing. Randy would say the same thing exactly. The first word out of his mouth whenever he introduced me is, he would say, "I'm the younger one." And then I would say, "Randy, take a look at that hair." Okay, for a minute. He referred to that as his mane, by the way, not his hair. And he loved that hair. And I just talked to his barber. Where's his barber that kept that hair working for so long? Right here. Okay. Don and Carol, thanks again. As Drayton, thank you. What a beautiful setting, and couldn't be nicer way to send Randy off. Friends, as Drayton mentioned, nothing more important to Randy other than family than friendship, and it's a testament to how many friends Randy had. There's another, I've got 50 to 70 friends down in Southern California that have known Randy through my golf tournament for up to 35 years, and we're going to have a big bash down in Manhattan Beach, either on the 12th or the 19th. So if anyone's down in Southern California, give us a holler and come on by for that. But he had friends all over the place. I want to give special recognition to Kathy and Drayton. If any of us, none of us are going to live forever, we all know that. And if we could choose the way we want to go, don't we want it? We want to be healthy and happy and productive as long as we can. And when that time ends, by God, I want to make a 20-foot birdie putt, take a tug on a cigar and a beer, and fall right in my frickin' face, okay? And there are different versions of that, but I would say this. Randy drew the short straw, and you all know that. We don't have to talk about that. But he showed tremendous courage, as several people have mentioned, and Kathy and Drayton did too. Andrew and I came up to help out and spell them, and it was tough. It was 24 hours on. He was like a little child. He needed 24-hour care. Andrew and I came up alternating to give Drayton and Kathy a blow, but then we would leave. We would jump on an airplane and go. And God, I would leave in tears so damn many times because I looked at them and said, shit, this is hard work. Drayton, so God damn it, you did a great job, son. And Kathy, you're the best. And Mr. Dave Stafford, he's got a zillion friends here. Randy does, but Dave has been a close friend of his. He's been in my golf tournament for 30 years or so with Randy. The two of them together was a lethal combination. They just both many times have been taken out and just summarily executed for some of the things they said and did. But Dave, you've been a tremendous friend of Randy's, and when the time was really tough in this last, 6-8 months, you were there, buddy, and you're a special guy, and I thank you for that. Okay?
Thank you.
Randy last played golf at my golf tournament a year and a half in Santa Barbara, and he'd reached the point, you guys know that Randy was a damn good golfer from tee to green, and around the green he was just horrible, but that's okay. He loved golf, and he came to my tournament, and it had reached a point where he really couldn't play golf anymore. It was gut-wrenching because he loved the game so much. But he was on my scramble team, and in my tournament, another one I go to, the D players, we play them from the red tee, and Randy played from the red tee, and he didn't hit 2 golf balls more than 4 feet off the ground the whole round. But I remember one hole, we were about 50 yards out, and the 3 of us, the other golfers, couldn't get one within 20 feet on a par 5, and sure as hell, Randy, as he'd done so many times, bladed a wedge in there about 10 feet. And he was running around high-fiving people like he just won the Super Bowl. And then, guess what? He knocked the damn birdie putt in. And if you've ever known anyone that liked to participate, to compete, to bet, and to win more than Randy, and in that fleeting moment, he just was in the moment, and he just loved it. And that day, there were 50 guys playing golf, and there was one story of someone went through their golf cart, and a crow with a wingspan about that big was in the cart looking for food. And all of a sudden, we realized the crow started flapping away and had a money clip in his mouth. Guess who out of 50 golfers that money clip belonged to? It was RB. We call him RB, but a lot of us. And he is cursing, and we're throwing golf balls and clubs, and the crow drops the money clip. That's about $300 to $500. Randy always had a pretty good money clip with him. And he needed it because he lost so many bets.
It does no good. It does no good. Yeah.
And I could tell a zillion stories of Randy, and every person here could think of 10 unbelievably crazy things that happened in his life. I'm not going to do that. And it's very appropriate for us to have fun and remember Randy in that light. But I'm going to go back and trace his life a little bit and quickly. Randy and I were born and raised in Northern California, and we ended up most of our lives in San Mateo. We lived right across the street from Hillsdale High School. And in high school, at lunch, he and his friends, and I want to recognize Ed Porky Becker, raise your hand. Ed came from NorCal, and they would be in the front room, and they would be smoking cigarettes and eating their lunch, and I was 2 years behind, so my 4 or 5 buddies would be in the kitchen, and they told us that if we ever came out of the kitchen, they were going to kick our ass. And so we would venture out of the kitchen now and then into the front room, and they'd come over and slug us or dogpile us, and to this day, there's a couple of them that still refer to me as the freshman, even though I could kick their ass right now. But, maybe not this one. But anyway, in high school, Randy played basketball, and he played 2 years of varsity. He and I both grew late, and he was on the varsity 2 years, and he was a good basketball player. Randy, he could shoot the mid-range jumper. He could rebound and play defense. Don't ask him to bring the ball up the full length of the court. That would be asking him like to hit a wedge over a sand trap. That wouldn't work out well. Randy was a very good baseball player. He was a pitcher growing up, but when he could see there was no light at the end of the tunnel, he morphed into golf in high school, and he carried that on beyond. When he graduated, Randy wanted to keep playing basketball. It had to be a small school, and I don't know how he chose Willamette, but he ended up at Willamette. And a lot of how many Willamette guys do we have here? Raise your hand that knew Randy in college, okay? Randy was a Phi Delta at Willamette, and he played on the basketball team, had a great experience in his fraternity and playing basketball, and always has spoken highly of his time at Willamette. He then went to grad school at the University of Oregon, and got his MBA, and that's where his love affair started with his beloved Oregon Ducks.
The Ducks.
Go, you Fighting Ducks. When Randy was afflicted, as Drayton said, I went through the same thing that some other people probably did, where I was angry as hell. Why would a wonderful guy like this get what is the equivalent of Lou Gehrig's disease with dementia. It's incurable, barring a miracle. And you just wonder why. He retired, and he had the back surgery, the hip surgery, and then these symptoms were coming on, and no one really knew about it until last summer. And then it was diagnosed, and we and he knew what was happening. And I finally got through the whole anger part of it. And my focus, and I'm sure Andrew's, was, let's talk about what a wonderful life Randy's had. And I brought every picture I could find there, and we relived all the old stories. All his buddies were coming by and calling from all over the nation. And he treasured all of that. He saw a lot of you guys. But when I think of Randy's life, I don't know how anyone could pack more into a 70-year life than Randy did. He made it 70 years. The last 2 years were not high quality, particularly the last one. But by gosh, he had a great college experience, married to 2 wonderful women, 2 beautiful sons. Occupationally, he was in the frozen food business. And who was better made to be a salesman than Randy Bowles? He was so damn personable. He loved his work, and he wrote those little notes down on his little cheat sheets because and I'm the same way, if it was written down, it was getting done. And if it wasn't written down, it wasn't happening. And he was meticulous in keeping track, very organized. And the problem with him losing his wallet and his glasses and his watch and his keys every week was that he never was able to write something down to remember where it was. So, but then you look at the fun this man had in his life. You look at the friends he had, more friends than any 10 people combined. And all you can say is that Randy had a wonderful life. But in my mind, he's joined my mom and dad and his, who we both miss dearly, and so many of his good friends who have predeceased him. And Randy Bowles will be a memory, I think, for everybody, because as his son Drayton said, he was a bigger-than-life guy. He had a huge personality, and I'll think of him every damn day of my life. I love you, Randy.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Brian Bowles. I'm Chris's son and Randy's nephew. As has been said already, Randy Bowles was a piece of work. And, you know, my formative years growing up were in the 80s. And 80s fashion was bad enough on its own. But my uncle took it to a whole new level. And the greatest part was that he thought, he was always dressed to the nines. I mean, he never, you get up on a casual Sunday morning, and he would look like he was getting ready to go to church. I mean, this guy, just impeccably dressed. And, one of my fondest memories was my Grandpa Jack had this house up in Capitola, my Grandpa Jack and Grandma Peggy. And we used to congregate there on certain holidays, and we'd go up there, and we just had great times on the deck. And, a lot of times it was just watching, my dad and Randy interact with my grandfather, because it was just classic. And I'll never forget Randy coming out. We're kind of all waiting to go down to the beach, and he comes out, and he's really excited, and he's like, "Guys, check out my new outfit." And he's got on these pants, and there's kind of a seam in the middle of the pants. And I'm like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Hey, Brian, look at this." And he just zips off these pants, and is just so excited about these pants that zip off into shorts. That was the greatest, fashion statement that you could ever make. And other things that just hit my mind are his braided belt with hints of purple and gold and green tinged into it. I mean, that thing got like 15 good years of wear. I mean, it was priceless. So, thinking about RB, he was just classic, and he loved life. And RB, I thank you for your thick calves and strong legs, because I didn't inherit my father's bird legs. Otherwise, I never would have broken 80 miles an hour and maybe never made it to the major leagues. So thank you for that. I don't thank you for your absent-mindedness, as my dad alluded to, which I do not write anything down, it is not getting done. And so RB, I take after RB very much in that respect. One other classic story about RB, because I think it embodies just his personality and the fact that he was in any social situation absolutely fearless. The Joe Montana retirement jersey ceremony for the 49ers and the game where Jerry Rice set the record for NFL touchdowns was on a Monday night game. And this was in the 49ers, heydays of winning, multiple Super Bowls. Steve Young was now the quarterback. And so tickets were going for, I think Andrew, we had talked about it, like $700, $800 for it. That, at that time is that's a big ticket. And Andrew, I think was going to take Drayton to the game, right? And the two of you were going to go, and
I orchestrated it.
you guys,
I orchestrated us getting to
so you guys had 2 tickets, right?
No, none. We ended up watching a woman get arrested for trying to get too much for her corporate tickets, and then found a guy sidle up with 2 press passes.
So Randy befriends this guy with the press pass that works at the front gate, and just walks up in his gregarious nature, befriends him, gets the press pass, ushers them in. Yet they don't have seats, right? So they get in and they get into the upper deck. And Drayton and Andrew spy, 2 seats in the upper deck, and they're just glad to be in the building. So they scoot over, grab these 2 seats. But that's not good enough for RB. And he also had Gabe there. He had Claudia's son. So he says, Gabe, come on, here we go. So he walks Gabe down, and they don't go to the middle concourse. They go to the bottom, right? They go to the bottom, and not just the bottom. They walk over to the 50-yard line and just kind of sidle and sit in the aisle. And there's a few cat calls from behind, like, hey, down in front, I can't see, this and that. But sure enough, Randy starts talking up and chatting the guy up, and a couple people get up out of their seats, and before you know it, Gabe and Randy are sitting down at the 50-yard line in one of the biggest games in 49er history, having had no tickets. It's just, like my dad said, RB, the quintessential salesman, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. This guy was just had the gift of gab and had the ability to connect with people. And I think seeing all these people here today is a testament to that fact. And the last thing I'll say, I saw my uncle, usually 2, 3, times a year. And like I said, Capitola was the Capitola House was, a congregating ground. Also my dad's golf tournament. And, the memories of the hospitality room at the golf tournament and just the back and forth between my dad. The one-liners between my dad and Randy, and you throw Stafford in the mix, and it's like you couldn't get a word in edgewise, but you didn't care because it was like being at a stand-up comedy hour. Just the back and forth that was going on. And what it really taught me more than anything, what the legacy that I think my father and RB taught to me, is that what's really important in life. Life's about family, it's about relationships, it's about friends, and I'm so thankful that I was able to get up here before he passed away and say my goodbyes, and as difficult as it was to see him in that condition. I'll never forget coming in that last day and him just, his eyes lighting up and just saying, "Bry guy." And it really hit me here, because it was like, you felt like so much of the time you were with him, and towards the end, he wasn't present, but he was. And even though he couldn't communicate that, he felt it. And he felt the love, and we gave him that love because he loved us that much. And so, RB, I just want to tell you, I love you, buddy. And you're the best uncle anybody could ever have. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew Bowles, Randy's eldest son, and I just want to echo a few sentiments from my brother Drayton and my uncle Chris. Thank you so much for supporting our family, for coming out, for sharing the stories, for giving us the hugs. It's been a tough road for the last year, and throughout it all, my dad had a tremendous amount of courage. When I look out at the number of folks here, the quality of folks here, I think it's not just my dad that people are out supporting, it's Kathy, had a tremendous partner throughout 40 years. And so it's a real blessing to us to have you out here and to have your support. For me personally, I really looking forward to a lot of the talks that are going to come. They're going to come from a place of friendship and heart. I'm going to share my thoughts of my father. I'm really here to talk about him as a dad. And there's just so much joy. I think when I think back to him coming to my games, you know, arriving in that big black car with the red pinstripes down the side of it. Brian talked about how he dressed. He just dressed a cut above. He smiled a bit bigger, cast a little bigger shadow than a lot of folks out there, and it was just such a joy to have him with you. And I think many of you will share some thoughts around that. For me personally, I've been thinking a lot about my dad each and every day, and it's raising my own children. Because Stephanie and I, we're able to pass on, and I'm able to pass on a lot of what he taught me, and I'm able to pass on to just two loving girls. It's a real joy. It's a way to think about him and to perpetuate his legacy. And I've taken real heart in that. It's a lot of heart. I think back about a decade ago, and Kathy put together an amazing 60th birthday party for him. I think many of us were there for that. And Claudia, who I'm sure will share a few words later, talked a lot about fun. She had a reoccurring theme for fun and the joy that he brought to people. And I think about that talk he gave, and it was special. It was really, really special, his ability to raise people up and make them feel better. And so with that, I'd like each of you to just raise a glass. My father loved what he called a happening. He loved it happening.
That's right.
Whether it was early in the day or late at night, he loved bringing people together for a happening. He'd be really glad to see us here. Thanks, everybody. I think Drayton's going to say a few words on behalf of Kathy.
I'm going to do my own.
Ah, you're up.
I'm doing my own. As the boys have already said, we thank you all for being here with us. And
You can do it.
I know. Randy and I went to a service for some friends many years ago. And the wife of the deceased spoke a very lengthy amount of time. And afterwards, when we left, he said, you know, if I predecease you, I need you to speak at my service. And I said, I'm not sure I can do that. But he said, you have to. So I am. In the 42 years that I knew him, he entertained me thoroughly. I remember at the beginning of our marriage that I suggested that we write love notes to each other. And he agreed. So I went and got a spiral notebook, you know, those kind that have like 3 things. And I would write pages and pages of notes to him, and I would decorate them with glitter and feathers and pressed flowers and leaves. And I worked at night, so, you know, and he worked during the day, so I would leave these notes for him. And then I would come home full of anticipation that he would write pages and pages and find some glitter somewhere. And he wrote 3 words. I love you. Well, you know, after about 3 months of this, I said, this isn't the best thing we should be doing. And some years passed, and I was going through a drawer or something, and I found this harp. And we never had to write anything again, because we just kept passing back and forth. He found a way to say everything better. And another story you may not be aware of, although I've told some people. My mother and I went to see Rudolph Nureyev dance in Swan Lake. I might have been 74 or something. And I came home, and Randy, who had never been to a ballet, in fact, when I took him to the ballet, he wanted to know when they were going to speak. But anyway, I came home from the ballet, and he asked me how it was, and I said, well, you know, Rudolph Nureyev has the prowess of a young lion. He didn't say much. But the next day when he came home from work, he leapt into the bedroom wearing pink tights. Landing like this, and he said, and what does Nureyev have that I don't? Well, he lands a little softer. And then, I just want to tell you how sentimental he was. He kept our wedding vows in his wallet. And I had written them. They weren't very long because I wasn't making any promises I couldn't keep. And so he would get them out periodically and review them. Now, I'm not sure whether he was reviewing them just because he wanted to know what we had agreed to or whatever, but whenever he would do this, he would test me. Randy was, I don't know if you've ever been tested by Randy, but, you know, he had to see if you knew what he was talking about. And so he would test me about them. And then when I couldn't recite them, even though I'd written them, he would coax me through them. And this is what they were. Ours is a sharing of beginnings and growth, sorrow and joy, and time and space for as long as love shall last. Randy, I was the love of Randy's life, and he was the love and light in life.
Next up, the light.